close he gets to the wall. I mean, he did lose a little bit of his left-hand side mirror there, but if you look at the straights in some of the corners here, you know, he's pushing that car to the absolute limit here that he could even find. So Gujan Lei will be leading the pack here coming into the race. The pit lane exit should be open, so the drivers will be going on their warm-up laps here at Batu Kawan Stadium.
So we are going to be looking at the map. The circuit length is going to be 1.692 kilometers with total corners of 10. The longest straight is 256 meters. If you are not in Penang, this is where you are wanting to be. Stadium Batu Kawan in Penang. So come on down and check it out. If you are back home and you're watching this live, you are not missing any of the action. We will be breaking down all of the action as it transpires to you live from Batu Kawan Stadium, Penang. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, we're all about the drive here at Toyota Gazoo Racing Festival 2020.
That's right, the drivers are now taking their positions on the grid here. We got Tengku Janle in this number 23 Motors team car. Going to be taking that P1 spot. Next to him is going to be Kenny Lee in the number 38 car. We do see Tengku Jan right now just doing his final checks and preparations before they will be starting off with their warm-up lap. So, I think one of the big things to watch out for is mostly going to be brewing in the back of the front road here. Mark Darwin and Brendan Paul. Brendan Paul, who you remember, had a bit of a crash in round number 2 that actually completely dropped him off the pace for round number 2. But coming into round 3, having qualified in P4, he definitely is putting up a very strong showing in round number 3, and hopefully will be able to get a good position. Mark Darwin, of course, will be next to him in the grid there. We're right now having a look at Kenny Lee, qualified in P2. Definitely a result to be very happy with, especially for his team Kagani Racing. They're definitely going to be in a good position to snap some good points for the first race.
One of the higher positions Kenny Lee has been able to score for this race has been second place. Definitely enjoying it. We are going to go over to Mark Darwin from Laser Motor Racing. Giving a little bit of the hang loose sign there, definitely relaxing, definitely getting ready to race here at third position in car number 63 from Laser Motor Racing. Mark Darwin just getting ready to burn some serious rubber as we're going to be going over to Brendan Paul. Brendan Paul, representing team Dream Chaser in car number 22, will be holding on to position number 4. Let's hope fortune smiles upon him this time here, as we do see that he has been putting in quite a lot of effort to maintain a winning streak, to maintain a sizable comeback here with a very disappointing start at Bandar, Malaysia. We are going to go over to Boy Wong right now in car number 21, position number 5. Just giving a little bit of a thumbs up. And it seems that the horn has been sounded off, and we are going to get underway in 5 more minutes. Victor, are you excited? Because I can't wait to watch whether or not this is going to be one of those very, very bumper-to-bumper action kind of races.
Well, I don't... I will hold my breath on that a bit, but one thing's for sure, when it comes to the super sporting class, they are going to be absolutely fast. We're talking about the best drivers right now in the VOS Challenge for Season 3, and these guys really have proved it in the qualifying rounds. A 1:14.698 was the fastest time set by Tengku Janle, and that's the benchmark that all these other drivers have to follow after him. And it's going to be a high bar to follow, not least here for Freddie Ang, who is currently in P8. He's starting from the back of the grid, so he's definitely going to have to hope to get a really good start here so he can make a few places on the first lap.
Well, as the first lap, as they are going to be getting into the grid position here, they are going to be... there's just going to be some final checks here being done. Safety car already on standby as we are going to be going into the final 60 seconds of the pace lap that's about to happen. So just remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the start immediately. They have to go for one pace lap first, get into their grid position. As the safety car gets out, it will be lights out and engines roaring for race number 1 in the Super Sporting Series.
That's right. So final words there from the trackside officials to the drivers. They're just making sure that everyone's in their place and ready to run. The safety car will be leading them on the parade lap. So that's going to be their final opportunity to get their tires and the of breaks up the speed. I think it's going to be interesting to note here that Kenny Lee's side mirror isn't exactly out fully. He's actually kept it folded here, so I assume that he's going to try to use that to his advantage here, perhaps try to prevent himself from preventing the side mirror from being hit by the concrete barrier. That's actually going to allow him to stay closer to the wall, so perhaps he's trying to find the extra edge over Tengku Zhan. Well, I guess it's going to be up to the actual start of the race before we can find out. 1 minute left until the start here at the Toyota Gazoo Racing Festival, round 3 at Batu Kawan, Penang.
Well, it's going to be round 3, but it's going to be race number 1 for the Super Sporting Series here as we are going to go underway. I think it was 3 minutes before we start the pace lap, so this is going to be very interesting to see how, this pace lap is just going to get them into their positions, get them into their grid position. It's going to be interesting to see how Tengku Zhan Lei is going to be maximizing his first place pole position here. What kind of a lead could he possibly get as the race progresses here? And it seems that it's only going to be about 60 seconds before we get into the race, and I can't wait to see. I mean, amongst all of the series, amongst all the categories that we have to commentate on, I feel that the Super Sporting Series is going to be the only series that's going to have less than 10 cars on the track.
Yeah, pretty much. There's only 8 starters here for this grid, so there's definitely a lot less traffic for most of these guys to deal with. But that doesn't mean that the racing is any less harder, because we're talking about a grid of 8 drivers who will represent some of the most veteran, the most experienced, and some real professional drivers here in the hands of these Toyota Vioses. So don't expect to have it as an easy round here. These guys, they really race hard against each other, and it definitely shows if you've been following the last 2 rounds. So we're slowly waiting for the countdown for the start right now. The 1 minute horn will be sounded off, and the trackside officials will be clearing the way for the drivers to go for their, I believe it's a parade lap. I'm actually not too sure at the moment though, because we haven't seen any indication on whether or not this is going to be a start or a parade lap. But the grid side is going to be clear. The medical car is on standby right behind them. There's going to be 30 minutes on this race, 15 seconds to go before they start their rollout.
Well, it is 30 minutes or 22 laps, whichever comes first. I doubt that we are going to be seeing the full 30 minutes actually expire. So I doubt that's going to be the case, but we've seen stranger things happen in the past. Hopefully we won't be seeing any crazy collisions, but I do believe that starting out in this track is going to be a fairly aggressive start for Tengku Zhan Lei later on, because I believe that Kenny Lee as well as Mark Darwin and Brendan Paul are definitely going to look towards putting some pressure onto Tengku Zhan Lei. These are the starting grid positions for the Super Sporting class in race number 1. Tengku Zhan Lei for 23 Motors. On first place, Kenny Lee, Mark Darwin, Brendan Paul, Boy Wong, William Ho. And moving on towards the next slide is going to be Shafiq Ali and Freddie Ang making up row number 4. 4 rows of drivers. Congestion won't be that much of an issue, but space is definitely going to be an issue here. With such a tight map, overtaking is going to be a problem.
Indeed, and I think like the best position, I feel that they could try to go for overtakes. Not at this chicane though. They're going to be way too coming in way too hot, and they have to brake very hard to come into the following corner, which is turn 7. But I think immediately after that, after turn 8, there's going to be a few back-to-back straights, and that could present a good opportunity for some of those guys who are able to keep close with their opponents to actually find a space to overtake. But again, as you can see, it's only a 2-lane road, so there's really not a lot of space. A very shrewd driver could easily block off the exits of any of the corners here. So I think most drivers here will have to bide their time. They have to find the right opportunities, right, and they have to be always on their toes, because you know we're talking about street racing here for the Toyota Gazoo Racing Festival. So street racing is always going to be less predictable than track racing. You can never know what's going to happen next.
A lot of dynamic variables that present themselves in a street race. However, this is to simulate a street race track in a safe and controlled environment with the presence of marshals, race directors, so on and so forth. with the level of care and caution that has been taken to make sure that everything is safe and sound, not just for the drivers, but as well as for the marshals, everyone involved, as well as the audience at large. We don't want anything to happen. Yep. Are you ready, Victor?
Yep, I am ready. The drivers are revving up, and here we go. Tengku Jian having a cracking start, staying ahead of Kenny Lee, blocking him up before they come into the first turn. But again, this is going to be a sweeping right-hander, so if he can find a good line there, he might be able to find his way through. And indeed, looks like Brendan Paul is facing a bit of trouble. He's trying to come up alongside through the inside lines to come into the main straight. Now, right behind there, Mark Darwin trying his best to find a way past Kenny Lee. He's currently in P3, but he wants to go for that P2 and continue to take the fight to Tengku Jian, who hasn't quite pulled away yet. He is coming down towards the straight right now. They will be coming down towards the start-finish line, I think. No, that's not quite right there. They haven't gone to the chicane yet. So, looks like they will be coming through towards the chicane now. That's going to be turn 6, and turn 7 will be coming up soon. Tengku Jian having a very good lead right now. He's having a very comfortable time there in his number 23 car. Looks like Kenny Lee is struggling a little bit to keep up with Tengku Jian. So, Mark Darwin could capitalize on this if he can just get his slipstream and find the gap that Kenny Lee will be leaving coming to the corners. But Kenny is definitely on his toes here. He's making sure there's no room for error at all as they come across the line. Tengku Jian in first, Kenny Lee in second, Mark Darwin in third.
Well, very interesting start here coming in from side Tengku Jian. Beautiful defensive driving that has been shown from him. However, Kenny Lee as well as Mark Darwin seem to be having a showdown here with Mark Darwin on the offensive, Kenny Lee on the defensive, looking to block whatever race line advance that Kenny Lee is trying to, that Mark Darwin is trying to apply onto Kenny Lee. Tengku Jian definitely has at least a car and a half, 2-3 cars space between himself and Kenny Lee. So what does Kenny Lee have to do in order for him to catch up with Tengku Jian?
Well, the thing is, Mark Darwin has a faster Sector 1 time compared to Kenny Lee and Tengku Jian. So if all things considered equal, he should be able to overtake Kenny Lee if he can keep this pace up. However, Tengku Jian is slowly starting to peel away from the rest of the grid now, having set the fastest Sector 1 time. And he's going to be coming to Sector 2, and he had the fastest Sector 2 time. So I would definitely predict that Tengku Jian might just be able to use this opportunity now to just pull further and further away into the lead and just leaving no room there for Kenny Lee or Mark Darwin to even catch up. But Mark Darwin, he has to get past Kenny Lee somehow because this man is definitely holding him back.
Definitely holding him back, but however, we do see that as Mark Darwin does try to pounce onto Kenny Lee always shuts the door on him. Tengku Jian is definitely going to be enjoying that front spot, but he has to be careful that he does not make a mistake that Kenny Lee can actually take advantage of. We do see that Brendan Paul as well as Mark Darwin may be facing off against each other, with Brendan Paul giving a little bit of poke towards the side of Brendan Paul. Boy Wong, William Ho, Freddie Ang and Shafiq Ali are going to be the 4 members of the race that make up for the entirety of the grid.
I mean, just look at how those cars are just bouncing around as they come into turn 3. I mean, that is part of the excitement and the danger, I suppose, of street racing, because, you know, when the track is bumpy like that, you can never predict how the bouncing car is going to be affected by your braking, especially going over a bump like that. And these drivers, you know, they are some of the best right now in Malaysia, and they're definitely proving that worth right now by just staying so close to each other coming down this track. The average speed around here is 80 kilometers per hour. That is not insignificant. Tengku Jian still leading the way now, appealing with a very, very huge lead now that's starting to appear between him and Kenny Lee. Mark Darwin seems like he's not pressuring Kenny Lee too much. Perhaps he's just holding back now, just waiting to see what happens with Kenny Lee's race. But what's for certain though is Brendan Paul and Boy Wong are currently locked in a 3-way battle along with Mark Darwin for the final spot on the podium. And it seems like as time goes on, Brendan Paul is starting to get some pressure here from Boy Wong, who senses an opportunity now as it comes down along the main straight. But not quite showing any gaps here. But maybe he might just try to make a move. The number 21 car makes a little swerve, but doesn't quite find a gap though coming down towards the third line. But he does have a much tighter line compared to Brendan Paul. So Brendan, you have to be careful. You have to drive very defensively from now on, because Boy Wong might just be out to get you.
Alright, as we look at how this is going to be transpiring here, we do see Boy Wong right now giving a lot of pressure onto Brendan Paul. Brendan Paul looking towards defensively driving with a little bit of caution here. We do see that a lot of the super sporting drivers race fairly conservatively compared to the sporting and promotional classes. We do see that that's just the experience speaking worlds upon their technical capabilities.
Yeah, but again, you know, because there's going to be a race on day 2, so any damage sustained here is going to carry forward to the next race. So for these drivers, that's always going to be constantly on their mind. Of course, that does mean that race 2 could open up opportunities for these drivers to be a little bit more aggressive. But again, this is going to be the first race. This is going to be the first test of all these drivers against each other, racing side by side. So a lot of things can happen here. I mean, we just have to wait and see how everything plays out.
Alright, as we do see how these drivers are looking towards jostling for position here, you see that Boy Wong is having a little bit of trouble here with the defensive driving on the side of Brendan Paul. We do see Kenny Lee as well as Takujan still holding on towards their positions. We don't see any changes, major changes yet thus far, as we see all across the board. No changes in terms of position, no changes that much in terms of time. Average time is about 1 minute and 16 seconds comparatively, with Takujan Lei as well as Kenny Lee being the 2 fastest men on the track with 1 minute 15 seconds and 725th of a second, with Kenny Lee trailing behind with 1 minute 16 seconds and 416th of a second.
So the thing is that Brendan Paul, by driving very defensively here, constantly trying to keep an eye on Boy Wong here, is actually hurting his pace somewhat, because you can see the gap starting to build up between Brendan Paul and Mark Darwin. It's just a sign that the pressure is really starting to get to Brendan Paul. Can he actually hold on here? Because a 4th place finish here, while it's not quite on the podium, it's still going to be a significant amount of points here, especially for Team Dream Chaser. So if anything else, Brendan Paul wants to be able to keep P4, but to do so, he has to keep Boy Wong at bay. They are coming down the main straight again towards turn 3. It looks like Boy Wong doesn't quite find the opportunity again to find a gap. It seems like Brendan Paul's defensive driving there has successfully kept him blocked up, especially coming out of the exit here into turn 4. You know, Brendan Paul is doing very well, keeping his car positioned in order to prevent Boy Wong from finding the gap that he needs to get past car number 22.
Well, as car number 22 right now looking towards closing the door onto the side of Boy Wong, we are going to be falling onto the perspective of William Ho, who is going to be the antagonist towards Boy Wong and the pressure that is being applied from the side of Boy Wong. However, excuse me, from the side of William Ho, Boy Wong is definitely going to feel a little bit of that pressure, but nothing too much. I believe that he just needs to get a little bit closer to give him that little bit of that shakiness. Just shake his confidence just a little bit.
The thing is that the whole train of cars that's being led by Brendan Paul is actually opening up some opportunities. We're seeing Freddie Ang, who actually made his way up to 7th place from 8th position. Remember, he qualified in last. He's slowly trying to make his way up the field, but he needs to be able to get past William Ho, and we're seeing a battle start to form before our very eyes here for P6 as Freddie Ang is slowly but surely starting to put the pressure onto William Ho. Can he hold on though?
As we do see on the lower side of the bracket, Shafiq Ali, Freddie Ang, William Ho still holding on to the bottom 3 of the grid here, as we do see some beautiful entries and exits here, as a lot of these cars are... Oh no! Was that a collision from the side of Shafiq Ali?
Yeah, that is, and that's a side mirror completely gone now. Shafiq Ali, his luck hasn't quite panned out the way he expected it to in race number 1. Not only is he passed by Freddie Ang, now he's got a slight damage on his car. It looks like he's still able to roll away with it, so hopefully it wouldn't affect him too much. But one thing's for sure, rest in peace to that side mirror.
Definitely rest in pieces. But shattering side mirrors aside here, coming back to the race, it has been relatively uneventful thus far, aside from a few broken side mirrors and a few spills of oil and rubber here and there. I feel like this particular super sporting series is not going to be as competitive as it was in Bandar Malaysia, mainly because of how much technical requirements you have to have for this particular circuit, and also certain things need to be abided by in terms of the racing line. I mean, you can't be taking some of these side corners without even thinking about the racing line. So we do see that Tengku Jan is definitely enjoying himself in terms of the amount of space that he has between himself and Kenny Lee. Kenny Lee feels a little bit of the urgency here, needs to speed up just ever so slightly to catch up with Tengku Jan. But it is so much space between him and Tengku Jan though.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's a 4-second gap between him and Tengku Jan. I mean, that's just testament to how much faster Tengku Jan is compared to all these other guys. And remember, he does have weight on his car, so 35 extra kilograms doesn't seem to have dampened his speed at all. He's still blistering fast as they come out towards the final turn. He comes into P1 now with 14 laps or 19 minutes, 45 seconds to go. And looks like he could be set to take another victory here in race 1, barring any unexpected circumstances.
Alright, as we're going to be seeing how this is going to be working out, Tengku Jan Lei still holding on to the top spot. We are going to be watching to the side of Boy Wong here in car number 21. Looking to pressure Kenny Lee even more. Kenny Lee still holding, Mark Darwin still looking to pressure Kenny Lee to give him a little bit of space here for Mark Darwin to pass through. However, it is going to be Mike Lee that's holding on towards the second spot. Tengku Jan Lei not too far behind.
Yeah, Boy Wong is so far the only guy who's close enough to try to give some pressure to his rival, which is Brendan Paul right now in P4. But Brendan Paul is not even giving an inch or a mile here for Boy Wong. So Boy Wong's going to have to be a little bit patient and perhaps a little creative in how he decides to tackle Brendan Paul's driving style, because he's going to have plenty of time to observe the way Brendan Paul takes his line, and perhaps he could use this opportunity to spot any weaknesses and perhaps line up for the attack. But where is that going to come? I'm still not too sure at the moment. I would say it's probably going to come out in Sector 2, but so far Sector 1 seems to be where a lot of the gains, at least in terms of time, can be found.
Well, Sector 1 definitely plays into some of these drivers' strengths, but majority-wise, I do see that a lot of these drivers tend to either understeer or oversteer, especially when they want to be taking onto the corners. Yeah, so just got to be very careful on how they want to be approaching this sometimes, because it can mean the difference.
No. Oh no, Kenny Lee. It looks like he stopped on the side of the track. It looks like a tire has come loose from his car. There's still a green flag here. I hope that turns to the yellow soon, because that could be a bit of a obstruction here, but fortunately he is off the racing line there. I wonder what happened to him. He was doing so well up until that point. We're going to be seeing the replay again. This is the exit coming out of turn 3. He comes in a little bit too hard and it just nails the side there. Ooh, the wheels actually came off of his car. My goodness, talk about literally driving the wheels off your car.
Kenny Lee has the Brendan Paul misfortune in this particular circuit.
No.
Very unfortunate for the side of Kenny Lee from Kagani Racing. Was doing valiantly well until this incident happened, and
oh my god, I mean, that's just opened up the door now, I think, for Mark Darwin to try to make some gains. But the thing is, you know, there's a huge gap between him and Tengku Jan. I'm not even confident that he's going to be able to secure the gap, but now with the safety car out, I think this changes a lot of things for sure. This definitely puts the P1 in the contention now between Tengku Jan and Mark Darwin, because remember, during the start of the race, Mark Darwin was kind of held back a little bit by by Kenny Lee, and with him out of the way now, there's nothing that stands between him and Tengku Jan. So this championship title fight might just have become so much more interesting now that the safety car is out.
All right, we are in lap number 10. 2 more laps to go here, as we are on the way for the amount of pressure that's being exerted by a lot of these players. As we do see that the safety car right now making sure that everything's okay, everything's alright, everything is clear than a whistle. We are going to see the car just guide everybody back into stop, and everybody will have an opportunity to either ride or drive or whatsoever. But man, oh man, it's been crazy to see that it was crazy to see that this collision was the catalyst towards the safety car coming out, thus lowering the amount of space that Tengku Jan Lei has with his second place compatriot in the form of Mark Darwin. So this could be very, very detrimental for the side of someone like who got Kenny Lee, because if Kenny Lee gets knocked out, yes, it's great. Mark Darwin's able to come up, but Tengku Janleh definitely has a lot of worry to have, mainly because of Mark Darwin. Mark Darwin does play this a little bit aggressively, and as you can see, it's only 0.0155 of a second. So in terms of the differential from the last lap and the last lap from both Tengku Janleh and Mark Darwin, the gap between him and Tengku Janleh is actually really small. It just depends on whether or not Mark Darwin will be able to bamboozle Tengku Janleh with crazy maneuvers or crazy movements.
Yeah, so the thing is that now it's going to be a safety car restart situation here for Tengku Jan and Mark Darwin. That pretty much cancels out all the work that Tengku Jan had done earlier on this round to build up a gap between him and the second place man, because now Mark Darwin is literally going to be up against his tail. So this restart is definitely going to be interesting. We want to see whether or not Mark Darwin can actually keep up enough with Tengku Jan to actually fight for P1, or will Tengku Jan still leave the rest of them in the dirt. So the other thing to watch out for, I think, is going to be Brendan Paul and Boy Wong's little battle, because they have been battling very hard in the early stages of this race, and now with the safety car out, it's going to allow them to cool down, simmer down a little bit, but they're going to be anticipating the restart as well, because if Boy Wong can somehow find a gap there to exploit on Brendan Paul, you know for sure he's going to be able to get a podium position now that Kenny Lee is out of the way.
Pretty sure that coming in from Mark Darwin, he does want to give a lot of pressure towards Tengku Janleh, but I don't think that that's going to be much of an issue for Tengku Janleh, because he is very much familiar with that kind of pressure, having the experience that he has. What I do believe that he has to be careful of is Brendan Paul, because if Brendan Paul pressures Mark Darwin high enough, Mark Darwin may be forced to try to fight on directly with Tengku Janleh. So this could be a huge opportunity for the side of Mark Darwin and third place to be able, Mark Darwin in second place, to be able to try to get that first place away.
So safety car is still going to be out on this lap here. We got 13 minutes to go here on the race. So the clock is still running here. So it looks like these drivers will have a little bit less time here to try to make it to the end here. And what that means, especially for like Mark Darwin, who wants to try to get a P1 position. So there's now 2 laps to go, I believe, or oh sorry, 1 lap could go here for this safety car. So I believe that once that restarts come, that is going to be where the results will start to show themselves now, because a safety car in motor racing is essentially a reset. You know, whatever gains, whatever losses you had, it's all gone now. It's all going to be about a restart. If you can actually get a good acceleration out of the line there, as soon as the safety car dives into the pits, you should be able to make up some good places here. And definitely people like Mark Darwin, Boy Wong are definitely going to be looking forward to that start.
Well, it definitely is going to be a start that Mark Darwin is definitely going to be looking forward to. Brendan Paul as well. With Kenny Lee out of the picture, it does catapult a lot of the drivers that were on the bottom half of the grid higher up, giving them a little bit more points. However, in order for Mark Darwin and Brendan Paul to score big, they need to take away Tengku Janleh, because if Tengku Janleh is able to get another big win here today, it's just going to get him a lot of points, and just like in this race, it's going to exacerbate his lead from Mark Darwin as well as Brendan Paul from the rest of the pack.
Again, well, all of this really does, you know, it's just continue the title fight between Tengku Jan and Mark Darwin. But crucially, Tengku Jan is going to be starting ahead of Mark Darwin, so he's definitely going to have to get a really good start. The safety car should be coming in very soon now. Yes, indeed, he goes into the pits. Tengku Jan, Mark Darwin, like cage horses, are waiting to get to the start now. As soon as they cross the line, it's going to be race time. Coming across the line now, Tengku Jan, getting the the start. He's going full pedal to the metal. Mark Darwin as well. They are coming to turn 1. They have to brake a little bit hard here because it's going to be a bit of a slow 2-turn corner here. And then soon after that is going to be the main straight. But again, the third turn will be coming up. It's going to be a sweeping left-hand corner. Mark Darwin needs to find the perfect racing line here in order to catch up to Tukujan. He takes it very, very tight. Tukujan leaving a little bit of gap there to just maintain more overall speed through the corner. Very brilliantly shifts the weight there in order to make his way to turn 4. Brendan Paul and Boy Wong are still battling it out for P3 at the moment. So if Brendan Paul can just keep Boy Wong at bay here, he might be able to keep his P3, but he's slowly slipping away from the 2 leaders of the race right now. Tukujan and Mark Darwin still absolutely gunning it through these chicanes as they come into turns 7 and 8.
Well, turn 7 and 8 could be very interesting here. It's going to be a battle for first position here coming in. I think that's going to be a bit of a miss. I think that's... Wait, excuse me?
What?
Well, I kind of thought that was a little bit wrong. It was Tukujan that's going to be fighting off with Mark Darwin for second for first place. Yeah, because they showed Kenny Lee's name there. Kenny Lee is out. So
okay,
there it is. Yeah.
Production.
Sorry about that, guys. There was a small little mishap on our side. Tukujan and Mark Darwin, cars number 23 and 62 respectively, are going to be fighting against each other. Brendan Paul not too far behind. Boy Wong also trailing far behind. But we do see that Tukujan Lei is definitely getting as much pace as he can. A little bit of a slip and slide there as they are going to be going on to this next turn here. Beautiful entry there coming in and beautiful exit as they are going to be going into straight into the next turn.
Beautifully sliding out of turn 4 there as they come down towards the next straight. They are coming across towards turn 5, and now it's going to be chicane of turn 6. And Tukujan is still leading away, a 1.2 second gap between him and Mark Darwin. Mark Darwin having 1.1 second between him and Brendan Paul. But Brendan Paul and Boy Wong, they are 0.6 seconds apart from each other. So Boy is still able to provide a lot of pressure onto Brendan Paul, who is slowly slipping up the pace and is actually starting to hold back a lot of the rest of the field here. Right behind him, but as long as he can keep P3, that's going to be a guaranteed podium finish from him, and definitely will be a highlight for today.
It's going to be a very, very interesting race here as Tukujan right now is getting himself further and further away from Mark Darwin, trying to get as much space as he can. However, Brendan Paul and Boy Wong are going to be fighting off against each other. Brendan Paul right now is still looking towards holding on his position, but we do see Boy Wong. Could be an opportunity for Boy Wong here.
I mean, he's still sticking close to the slipstream here for from Brendan's Paul car, but Brendan Paul actually going a little bit wider through turn 3, so I think Boy Wong can slowly start to close the gap. But the thing is, the weight shift there, you know, from turn 3 to 4, you have to transition quite sharply, I should add, that from that sweeping right-hand turn to immediately to a hard left, and that is caused a loss of balance there, and that took out Kenny Lee's race. So the thing is that for Brendan Paul, at least, he has to be able to keep his pace up, and he's not quite showing that on the time board here, unfortunately, because he's consistently slower compared to Mark Darwin or Tukujan Lei. He's not able to maximize the fact that he has quite a bit of gap between him and Mark Darwin could actually try to pull away. He just doesn't quite have the pace, unfortunately.
And that's the problem that has been posed towards the side of Mark Darwin as well as Brendan Paul. The problem here is even if they manage to fight for second place, first place seems to be more of a dream than a reality for some of these drivers here, considering the amount of space that Tukujan Lei has managed to garner for himself between him and second and third place. I do believe that this could be Tukujan's game if he just keeps up this performance and maintains his consistency. We see that Tukujan is one of the more consistent drivers here at super sporting class.
He might have a look on the inside here for Brendan Paul coming out turn 3 and 4. He's definitely sticking very close to him coming out onto the straight now, but he hasn't quite found a gap yet. He might try to find it in the chicanes though, because that seems to be kind of a wide open space here. It could be an opportunity, but doesn't quite have the exit speed necessary to keep on the inside of Brendan Paul, so he will be stuck behind him coming down into sector 2. But will Brendan Paul actually slip up? We got 6 laps to go here with Tukujan still leading ahead with a 3.1 second gap. My goodness, this man is still driving the absolute wheels off of his car here. He set a 115 previously, well, at least the last few laps ago, so he's definitely still on top of his game. Nothing seems to get in his way.
Nothing seems to get in his way for sure here, as we do see that Tengku Janlei looking towards getting more and more consistent space between himself and Mark Darwin. We do see that over in the one side, the Shafiq Ali, Freddie Ang, as well as William Ho struggling a little bit, but there are no obvious changes in terms of positioning. It has remained the same, with the exception of Kenny Lee being pushed out of the game due to the collision that happened to him.
Yeah, so at the moment, Boy Wong still unable to find a way past Brendan Paul here, and I can feel that maybe some frustration might be setting in on Boy Wong's side as he constantly has to stare at the back of the number 22 car through the chicanes, through the straights, and all throughout this race. 5 laps to go. If he wants to make a move, he better make it quick now, or else Brendan Paul will be running his way to the podium at the end of this race.
Well, it could be Tengku Janlei that ends up on the podium, but at the end of the day, it's all about the consistency that has been posed by Tengku Janlei, and mainly because of his capabilities to hold on. Timing has been, first place has been very kind towards Tengku Janlei. He has not seen second place thus far, as we see the 5th lap, the 5 more laps to go, but it seems that driver for car number 3, Freddie Ang, reporting to the racetrack session for contact with the bollard at turn number 6. This could be a penalty. Maybe a penalty here for the side of Freddie Ang, which can be very detrimental towards his progress here. Yeah. However, we do see that there is not going to be any changes towards our top 5 racers here in the form of Tengku Jan, Mark Darwin, Brendan Paul, Boy Wong, and William Ho, who are still holding on towards those top 5 spots and are still maintaining it. But we might see a little bit of a shift here coming in.
Boy Wong is still continuing to give that pressure that he almost had a look on the inside there for Brendan Paul, but didn't quite have the speed through the chicane to actually follow through with it. But we know that he's getting closer and closer by the second. I mean, they've been consistently half a second or at least less than a second between each other. So the thing is that it's only a matter of time. If just one slip of the hand here from Brendan Paul, he could lose his podium position here to Boy Wong. But with 3 laps to go, it's going to be an absolute endurance race now until the very end. Remember, it's really hot outside here. These drivers are absolutely pushing themselves mentally and physically to the limit. And that's not to mention how much they're pushing their cars, especially Tengku Jan, who again is still leading the pack. 4.7 second gap between him and Mark Darwin. I mean, does this guy ever slow down?
And I do see that how much speed that Tengku Janlei has been building up against him, and he has maintained that level of speed and level of how he is able to attack some of these turns. So I do feel that coming in from Tengku Janlei's performance in this particular race for the Super Sporting Series is the standard which every other racer in the Super Sporting Series is to be judged. Consistency is the key here, and we do see Mark Darwin, Brendan Paul, Boy Wong, William Ho, Freddie Ang, Shafiq Ali now struggling a little bit to try to maintain that spot. But look at the amount of distance between Tengku Janlei and Mark Darwin. It seems like it's unfair.
I know, that's exactly my point. I mean, this guy just doesn't let up. Even though he's in the lead, he's still constantly pushing the car to the limit. And to your point, you know, it's not just about speed, it's also the precision that which Tengku Jan is able to keep his car under control. And that's testament to his years' experience in driving cars, drifting cars even. And he's definitely making the most of it right now. 5.2 second gap now with 2 laps to go. I mean, there's no way Mark Darwin will be able to catch up to him unless he slips up.
Could be a big mistake here, because we only have 2 laps to go, and if Tengku Janlei manages to slip up, that could be the biggest throw in this entire series if Tengku Janlei decides to just makes a mistake and throws away his sizable lead against Mark Darwin.
Yeah, so Brendan Paul now and Boy Wong, they're still able to keep in position. like this. Been no changes so far. And the way that Brendan Paul's been driving, Boy Wong, he had a few looks on the inside, but just couldn't find the necessary speed to overcome Brendan Paul's positioning. So brilliant defensive driving there, I have to say, from Brendan Paul's side, because he's able to hang on to P3 from start to finish, even with the safety car. Now that the Tengku Giants come across the line, we are entering our final lap of the Super Sporting class, race number 1 here in Batu Kawan Stadium. I hope you guys are hanging on to the edge of your seats, because we might see Tengku Giant come across as the winner of race 1 in just a few moments.
Well, it could be Tengku Janlei, and as we said again, we don't want to speculate, we don't want to say it for a fact, because anything can happen in this matchup, as we have in this race, as we have seen with Kenny Lee. Very unfortunate, holding on to second position, and with just a small mistake, met up with a disastrous collision with the concrete wall, and wasted effort there coming in from the side of Kenny Lee, because it was a great effort.
I mean, speaking of concrete walls, though, I think Shafiq Ali has just lost his second mirror. We see it hanging off the side, so little droopy side mirrors there, kind of like droopy ears on the little puppy dog. That's kind of cute.
Yeah, I do believe so as well. Doesn't do well for the aerodynamics of the car, that's for sure. But it does add a little bit of humor towards an otherwise serious race. Tengku Janlei being waved in first place, raising his fist in victorious celebration here, as the checkered flag is going to be waved for all the drivers except for Kenny Lee. Congratulations to Tengku Janlei, waving up with big smiles, number 1, as he signals from 23 Motors with the best lap of 1 minute and 15 seconds, with total time of 30 minutes, 31 seconds and 276 of a second. Is going to be Tengku Janlei in first position.
Indisputably the fastest man on track here right now. Mark Darwin coming in second, but it wasn't even close. He was not able to close the gap at all. He wasn't able to keep the pressure up at Tengku Jan, unfortunately, so he will have to settle for the second place. But the good news, I suppose, for Mark Darwin is that coming to race 2, there will be a reverse order grid there for the top 6 drivers, if I'm not mistaken. So that will actually put Mark Darwin ahead of Tengku Jan. So if Mark Darwin can actually successfully pull off a good defensive drive there, and even try to make up some places as he goes, taking advantage of the traffic, he could find himself finishing ahead of Tengku Jan coming into race number 2. So that's definitely something to watch out. But I have to give a shout out here to my man Brendan Paul, all the way P3 from start to finish there since the safety car, and he's actually held it all the way to the end there. He's going to be finishing in the podium. Definitely a happy result here for him and Dream Chaser, but better luck next time again for Boy Wong, William Ho, Freddie Ang, and Shafiq Ali. They weren't quite able to keep up with the top 3, but nevertheless they still finished very closely to each other and definitely show that they are still a force to be reckoned with.
Really valiant efforts here coming in from all of our races. Here are the finalized results from the Super Sporting race number 1 for the Toyota Gazoo Racing Festival. Round 3 here in Stadium Batu Kawan, Penang.
Yep, that's Tengku Jan in P1, Mark Darwin in P2, Brendan Paul in P3. So that is your top 3 podium finishers. Then we got Boy Wong and William Ho in P4 and 5 respectively. And finally, Freddie Ang and Shafiq Ali in P6 and 7. Kenny Lee, though, is a DNF due to having a crash with the concrete barrier. So he is going to be in P8 as a result.
Well, as we do see here, very unfortunate here for Kenny Lee, despite the fact that he was cancelled out early on in the race with a sizable lead. Still seems to be in high spirits. But Tengku Jan right now, definitely not of confidence, not of conviction, and not of victory, with the wave and the number 1 finger up in the air. Big win coming in from Tengku Janlei from 23 Motors. As we're going to be seeing onto the highlights here, ladies and gentlemen, check it out. It was a fairly action-orientated kind of race. It was fairly standard. We didn't see much collision. We didn't see much fight. We did see a few battles here and there. But generally, a lot of the races in the super sporting class race with a little bit of conservatism, if I believe.
I think it's mostly just them being professional enough to have a good, clean race, and that's exactly what we want to see from race number 1. Because
Definitely.
again, race number 2 is going to be where the real action starts to heat up, because with the reverse order grid for the top 6, as well as the fact that it's the end of the weekend, the race weekend, effectively. So whatever damage done to your car is not going to affect your next round performance. So the thing is that for people like Kenny Lee and maybe even Shafiq Ali to a certain extent, they're going to have to bring the car back to the pits. They're going to have a nice good look at it, see what they can salvage, see whether or not they can get the car turned around in time for race 2. But for Kenny Lee, it's definitely a very tragic moment for him to be DNF'd out of this race there from that collision, because otherwise he could have finished very high in the points there. It could be a contender actually when it came to day number 2. But that's upwards and onwards with all of that. Tengku Jian is going to be your race winner for the super sporting class, race number 1.
And the checkered flag signifying our winner for Tengku Jian Lei. In the highlights here, beautifully done, as Mark Darwin, Brendan Paul, Boy Wong, William Ho, Freddie Ang, and Shafiq Ali were the ones that were able to walk away from that were able to cross the finish line, as Kenny Lee will be the only one left out into the cold. We do hope that he will be able to come back into this game with higher spirits and a better effort, and hopefully better fortune.
That's right. So this has been the first race here for the super sporting class. I hope you guys will stick around though, because we'll be going into the sporting class coming right next, and you better believe it, it's going to be a very packed grid. 16 drivers on the track. There's definitely a huge potential for some action there. My name is Victor Ang. Joining me here is Nick Harris. This is going to be the Toyota Gazoo Racing Festival Season 3, Round 3. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We'll be right back after these messages.
Para mereka. Kita siap ambil gambar dah tu. Baik, Fujino-san, Drip Samurai-san. membuatkan pusingan donat. Yang tuan charge sikit-sikit je. Dia nak testing sama Fujino tu. Fujino, apa yang dia buat? Fujino pula. Ini bukan langkah. Beliau pula buat pusing. depan mata, cabaran depan